working? Yeah. So, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I would like to welcome all of you here today at our breakout session entitled Water Innovation Towards Sustainable Communities. Today we'll be having a panel discussion with the aim of discussing water innovation as a sustainable solution for facing water crisis in the MENA region, with focus on opportunities, challenges, and recommendations for scaling up. So at the very beginning, allow me to give you a brief on the water situation in the Middle East and North Africa, where the region faces some of the world's most severe water crises, driven by a combination of natural scarcity, climate change, rapid population growth, and inefficient water management practices. MENA is home to some of the most arid climates globally, where 12 out of the 17 most water-stressed countries in the world located there. Average rainfall is extremely low in the MENA region, and large areas of the region are desert to semi-desert. The region's natural water resources are limited, and renewable water resources like rivers and aquifers are not sufficient to meet growing demands. Per capita, water share in the MENA region is less than 10% of the world's average. Key rivers like the Nile and Tigris cross multiple borders, which complicates access and control. Political tensions often arise over shared water resources, exacerbating the water crisis. The MENA region's water crisis is one of the most pressing challenges facing its communities, economies, and ecosystems. A combination of technological innovation, policy reform, and regional cooperation is essential to manage water resources sustainably. Addressing the root causes of water scarcity, like inefficient agricultural practices and population pressure, alongside improving infrastructure and promoting conservation, will be crucial to ensuring water security in the face of the mounting challenges. This panel will focus on water innovation in building sustainable communities in the MENA region, where water scarcity and high population growth have created an urgent need for solutions. So that being said, allow me to welcome and introduce our great panelists for today. Dr. Divas Karimenzira, I hope I pronounced that in the right way, the Vice Group Leader of Surface Water and Maritime Systems Group at the Fraunhofer Institute of Optronics, System Technique, and Image Exploitation in Germany. Dr. Divas is a specialist in water management solutions, starting from watershed management, drought and flood scenario analysis, optimization of water distribution networks and wastewater systems, to water demand forecasting and management. He has published several research articles in the field of water systems. Dr. Divas will be representing the business experts. And then we have Mr. Jean-Marc Champagne, Managing Director of Seneca Impact Advisors, leading all operations. He has spent 7 years at WWF as head of Bankable Nature Solutions for Asia Pacific, overseeing scalable projects with environmental and social impact. He co-established the Climate Impact Asia Fund and serves on its investment advisory committee. His 17-year financial career includes advising institutional investors at many firms, primarily in Asia. And Mr. Jean will be representing investors. And we have Ms. Joyce Wu, who has engaged in the incubation of scientific research achievements and brand building for more than 10 years, and participated in the establishment of the annual report on the development of water environment governance industry in China 2024 of China Water Environment Governance Union, and successfully applied for a number of projects such as transformation of scientific and technological achievements in Jiangsu province. Ms. Joyce will be representing the private sector and companies. And last but not least, Mr. Zhou Yu. I hope I'm pronouncing your names in the right way. Zhou has been engaged in international trade for 15 years, with over 10 years of experience in overseas projects and has a profound understanding of the culture and market of South Asia, Southeast Asia, and the Middle East. And also Joe will be representing the private sector. So it's a pleasure to have all of you here today at my panel. My name is Rana Arda. I'm the manager of the Water Studies at the Royal Scientific Society of Jordan, and I will be moderating this session. So I would like to welcome all of you, ladies and gentlemen. So I'll start with one big general question. What does water innovation mean to you in the context of sustainable communities? So anyone would like to start?
So I can. So I guess we can take a look at water innovation and what it means for finance. I mean, in the finance world, I guess, or you can say, is water investable? So in and of itself, it's a commodity that is for everyone, right? So so we need to think of innovative ways to make water investable. And what we're doing and how we do it is we incorporate water into our projects, or we try to find, where projects need or are reliant upon water. So an example would be, we're looking at, a project in Vietnam, for example, that is a rice and aquaculture project. Now, the problem that has happened with that particular project, or I guess when it first started off before we kind of got involved, was that the land in the Khmer province of Vietnam is subsiding, right? And there's a lot of subsidence going on. And what happens is where they're growing the rice, you get sea level water intrusion because there's subsidence, but also sea level rise is happening. But what we're trying to do with the rivers and what we want to do is open them up to farming practices where you have natural irrigation coming back in, because I think and I'm not an expert in this, but I used to work very closely with water colleagues within WWF, but what would happen is that the way water or rivers have been, I guess, protected to prevent flooding, while that might be okay, but they've also done a lot of damage because now they are set up where they're not bringing down natural sediments back in to help build the land back up. Because when you allow natural irrigation, those sediments that would flow downwards can be irrigated and keep the land. And that's not the only reason. Also, pumping water out of aquifers is not a good thing either in terms of subsidence, but allowing it to naturally flow. So we're trying to incorporate a project where we look at the rice farming, but also add in shrimp farming. So the farmers that are doing it will get an enhanced benefit of shrimp farming because the shrimps will grow or can be cultivated in brackish water. And we are looking to still keep the rice in certain seasons. So the idea is that we're not working on water particularly, but we're working on a project that will help benefit water, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Nice. So, Dr. Divas, do you have anything else to say?
Exactly. Yeah, I can talk, from my experience in water management systems. So yesterday there was a...
Yes, thank you. It's on.
It's on. Oh, that's fine. Yeah, okay. Exactly. For my experience in water management, yesterday there was a speaker who was talking about too little, too much, and dirty. Yeah, too dirty. So my understanding of innovation in water systems is to deal with these three issues and also to make water as cheap as possible, and accessible to everyone in the world, especially in the Middle East, where there's a lot of water shortage. There you need solutions which are really, adapted to the region, especially, if the shortage of water, desalination plants, how to transport the water easily without much loss. And innovation for me means also that we have to try to save the water as much as we can. Like all this, worldwide, there's a problem of water leakages. So for me, innovation means trying to remove all those leakages, at least try to save water through solutions which are adapted to the regions. Yeah.
Great. So So I think innovation is like finding a solution to a problem within the local context. So the solution should be appropriate for the local context that you're working on. So this is innovation. Do you have anything else to say, Joyce, Joe? What is water innovation for you? You don't have to be an expert in water to define innovation. So, Joyce, how do you see water innovation from your perspective?
Okay. To personally, water innovation is a kind of improvement of our life quality, but also for our company, it's a kind of improvement of our environment. We also engaged in the water treatment in rural and urban areas. I remember 4 years ago, we engaged in a kind of rainwater collection technology. At that time, at the beginning of 2020 year, we also know the construction of Huosenshan Hospitality. It's a new kind of technology, but it's also used in the construction of Huosenshan Hospitality for the medical sewage water, the collection. We also help the construction and help the current situation to become better. So I think it is the kind of improvement of our life and our environment.
Thank you, Joyce. Joe, I would love to hear your definition of water innovation. This is a compulsory question.
Yes, okay. My business mainly is doing with sewage and with water, but much deeply agree with Ms. Divas. The innovation of the water in mega region, and normally we need to consider about the transferring and the storage. It's sometimes the cost is getting lower than before for seawater desalination, but still the transfer and the storage is still work. I guess it is much complicated. Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Another question, it's a general one. How do you define sustainable communities with respect to water management? So we're talking about water innovation and sustainable communities. So I would love to hear from you, our panelists, how do you see sustainable communities? What is a sustainable community from your point of view?
So,
yes.
From my point of view, sustainable communities is like people, when you are developing water solutions, that you must look at the region, talk with the people, the community, and understand the real problems which are there, whether there is not enough water because of like losses just wasting the water, or there's no water because of water wastage through pipe leakages, and whether there's no water because people are misusing it. For example, in the Middle East, it's very hot countries, and then you plant a lot of tomatoes, for example, and you have to irrigate a lot, and the water just evaporates. So for me, that's not really sustainable. You must find at least some solutions for irrigation, for example, like drip irrigation, where you don't have such water losses.
Thank you, Dr. Divas. More definitions for sustainable communities from your...
I would just also kind of, it's a rhetorical question really, but are there really sustainable communities? Humans tend to be very wasteful by nature. So to have sustainable communities and keep them, maintaining them, I think is quite difficult. So my view on sustainability, and we work, that's all we do, but it's more from the financing aspect, but just regardless of that part, everything we do is sustainability, but my view is that sustainability has to happen from the top, whether it's water or whatever we're talking about. There has to be, policies and regulation in place, because humans by nature will do the easiest thing that they can do. They don't, even as much as I'm in this space, if something's easier at the end of the day, we're going to do it. It's human nature. So things have to be, innovative solutions have to be put in place that take regard of water and of other resources that we have when they're designing the, whether it's a community or whatever it is, a factory, whether it's a farm, and how they implement that usage of that water, not just so much what you were saying in terms of wastes and for tomato farming. And so that has to be designed right from the top. But there's many things that you can look on how to have innovative solutions for water. But yeah, I'll just leave it at that.
Thank you. Do you have something to say?
To be honest, we are a company, so we also want to promote our technology or something like this. I said now, the rainwater collection technology. In our China, both in rural and urban areas, especially in some new life communities, when they are building, they will use the rainwater collection products, because it is used to collect our rainwater for something like irrigation or wash our vehicles. It's a kind of water resource protection or a kind of water resource saving like this. So we also cooperate with our customers or our government to promote something like this technology to protect our water and to protect or make our community to sustainable. Thank you.
Yeah. Joe? A compulsory question as well, I'm sorry. So how do you see sustainable communities?
Yes, I guess recycle and recycling is also important for the resource. The resource. We try to find some new way and new concept. As per my company and also the government, we try to find a new material and a new method for recycling. Now we have some new product, but I guess the new concept need time to be convinced. So we need to maybe for the water, for the new water production, it's easy to get benefit, but for the recycling, the resource, how to disposal is another kind of, I guess it's a new concept to how to, maybe we should set up some reward to this part.
Oh, okay. All right, so I've heard engagement, maintaining regulations, protection. So I think that sustainable community is a community that is needed to be sustained, that is needed to be protected. A sustainable community is a community forever. Like when you say a sustainable community, then you're looking for a community that will be maintained for a longer and the longest period of time. So this is in a nutshell like the definitions from different perspectives. And I would like to ask Jean-Marc, please, from an investor point of view, what types of funds do you offer, or what types of projects do you prefer to invest in? Is water innovation related projects and agricultural solutions among the projects that, as investing a company, are at the top of your priorities? So how do you see water related, agriculture related projects from the perspective of investing?
Yeah, thanks for that question. I think that water, we can set up funds to have water innovation funds that will look at different technologies to invest in, or looking a big area that we think is not utilized, and probably because it's very capital intensive, but is wastewater treatment. Lloyd, I'm not here, but he was talking about that yesterday. But wastewater treatment, that needs to be implemented in a lot of places, right? But it's capital intensive. The returns are not as great as other investments. But that is something that we look at. But aside from that, in terms of projects, water is a key component of a lot of our work, and it ends up being not so much the project itself is about water, but it's one of the goals that we're trying to deliver on. And it could involve like a project we're looking at in Laos, for example, it's sustainable coffee, but as we look at the community that we're dealing with, they need more. They're up in the mountains. They don't have drinking water. They have these wells that are almost dry. How do we get more water to them? So there's those aspects of that, but that goes in the broader picture of our actual sustainable coffee project. Then we also look at water as from a species point of view. We came up with a project with WWF. This was actually in Europe. And how can we repopulate the freshwater species of the sturgeon, and working with sturgeon farmers that are producing caviar, how can we come up with something that will then help repopulate that species? So we don't just look at it from a pure water perspective, but also the species that are dependent on that water, which in turn has a good impact on water as well. And then again, back to the project I mentioned in Vietnam, it's the project itself is not necessarily water, but it's about how do we make better practices in farming and then better irrigation methods, which will in turn be helpful in water in the first place. So we look at water as a component of all of our work, and it's a very key component. And I think it's actually an underappreciated and under-service component everyone talks about climate, everyone talks about carbon, now everyone's talking about biodiversity, but at the end of the day, without water, what are we going to do, right? It's one of the key ingredients, that and oxygen, right? So if we don't have that, and that's in bad shape, we're in bad shape. So we have to incorporate that more, I think, into the work that we do, not just us, but everyone. And when we talk to the financial community, again, they're focused on carbon because of carbon credits, or they're focused now on biodiversity because that's what the new in thing is to do. Maybe water will get there, and maybe we can look at things also like water credits, which would be really interesting, where how can we get just like in carbon, you get a sequestration from carbon, then you can attribute that to and get carbon credits and monetize that. Can we actually monetize water with a fresh water credit? That's something we can consider.
So you do facilitate green financing?
Yeah, that's what we do. Yeah, and it could be.
You have said you're looking at the water one way or another. So it doesn't have to be directly, the project does not have to be directly connected to water, but it's impacted, or it does affect the water sector in a way.
Most of our projects, a key component will be, because a lot of it, a lot of projects, because our projects are what we call, I think as you mentioned in my introduction, bankable nature solutions. That was a term we coined at WWF. But what that is essentially investable projects. And in order to be investable, we have to come up with ideas that will make money. Because what we're trying to do at the end of the day is move away from grant dependency. Like a lot of conservation environmental projects are dependent on grants. What we want to do is use what we call blended finance. We still get grants, but a small portion of grants. But we commercialize the project to then attract investment capital. That's our main goal. But a lot of what we do, because it's commercial, we're selling a product like sustainable coffee, or the rice and aquaculture, or palm sugar. All this is a commodity that can be sold, that we can then get revenue and then return the investment back to the investor, return what they invested in. So a lot of what we do is based on agriculture, is my point. And water obviously is a huge component of agriculture. So we need to have water that's not polluted. We need to have access to water, and there's water scarcity, of course, as well. So there's a lot of reasons why we focus on water. But also, just to mention, we do look at other things like wetland conservation and mangroves and things that are also around freshwater, and flyways for birds on those wetlands. So that's an important component also of what we do. And how do we find, that's where the water credit idea is coming to play. It's not anywhere in terms of being viable yet, but we're considering that. But yeah, water is an absolute key component of almost every project that we do.
Yeah, I just have one comment regarding what you have said regarding the connection between agriculture and water. Particularly in the Middle East, we have like 50 to 55% of the water budget goes to the agricultural sector. So that's why in the Middle East we do look for agricultural projects as water conservation and water use efficiency projects. We do need the wastewater treatment and reuse. So you can find that wastewater reuse is very high in the Middle East because we look at wastewater as a sustainable, renewable water resource that we have to use. It's not a luxurious issue, it's a must because we don't have enough water for drinking and domestic purposes and so on. So thank you, Jean. I have a question to Dr. Davis from a business expert perspective. What are the key challenges that water startups face, and what are the proposed, let's say, mechanisms to overcome such challenges? Because in the Middle East as well, most of the water and environmental and green entrepreneurs and green startups, they face many, many challenges. It's different than innovation in other sectors, in the technological sectors and IT solutions and so on. So it's very challenging. So from an expert point of view,
from business perspective, there are quite a number of challenges, especially in the Middle East. I can tell you we had a project in Libya some time ago before Gaddafi was thrown out. And so political instabilities is one of the issues. You know, if you invest in water systems or as a company, as a startup, that can easily happen. So that's one of the challenges. Besides getting money, access to funds, is also a very big challenge. But in that case, there are some solutions which you can do. For example, you can do nowadays crowdfunding. Try to go to bank. We're talking about the LDC bank. Mm-hmm. You can try to get some money there. Another issue in the Middle East or North Africa is this fragmented market. Yeah. If you look at it, you know, there are some countries which are rich, we can afford everything, Saudi Arabia, for example, or Jordan. Yeah. And then there are some countries, which are very poor. So at least you must develop some solutions, you know, to solve this problem, which are adaptable to the specific country, which, really tailored to that area. And also another issue is about skilled workforce, in the region. And so if you got a shortage of skilled workers, especially if you are talking about optimizing systems, you need expertise here in marketing, you need expertise in technology itself, you need expertise in other issues. But this, you can also solve it because, you know, there are a lot of young people in the region. So you can work with universities, for example, try to get student direct from there, and then they do like workmanship in your startup. At least in that case also you can save some money. And those are the main challenges which I see in the region.
Thank you, Dr. Davis. So from private sector perspective, Dr. Davis have just mentioned some of the challenges for startups and companies. So how do you see challenges? What are the challenges? He's an expert. He's talking from an expert point of view, and you are the practitioners. You are the real companies. So who would like to start with the challenges that you face as startups and companies?
I'm from a company called IMBase. It is kind of a technology incubation. So we also focus on the green technology, like environmental protection. So the most difficult challenge is how to make the technology provider to trust you can protect their intellectual property and provide you to incubate their technology to or startup or new company or a new team. So the most important thing is to build the trust foundation. Also, the other challenge is how to get the investment to form a new startup.
Jean, he needs investment.
For our company, it is the main two challenges in the most obviously. And we also found our own fund to invest our new startups. But fundamentally, we are a company. Economic flexibility is the most thing for us. So we will incubate technology. Firstly, we should know what kind of technologies could be used in the market in the short time or in the shorter time. So we prefer to incubate more technologies in focusing on the environmental protection, like water treatment or sewage treatment or earth treatment like this. The other thing, we also bring in like a Shanghai Technology Exchange to help us clarify the responsibilities of the technology from the college or the universities, and pricing at their technologies to avoid the following or potential questions when the new company is establishment. So this is our way to, our solution to handle this kind of our challenges.
Yeah, thank you, Joyce. Joe,
yes.
What challenges do you face?
It's similar like Mr. Joyce.
Can you tell us first about the solutions that your company provide, and then the challenge?
Actually, the solution is difficult to find. It's not easy. And in my memory, we work with private company, state-owned company, or government. The problem is if the project in a country is not very rich, the first problem is for the water production, purification. So this is the first thing. But sometimes we must meet the problem of the wastewater. But wastewater, if you have a low, you don't have much sufficient investment or budget. So if there are two kind of project, and they consider the first thing is to make water, not to treatment. So my challenge is how to let them to know they are both important in the future. And now the low carbon emissions is coming the world problem. Yes. So I guess the water is another different way to find a new innovation.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Joyce. So political instabilities, lack of funds, access to funds, let's say, sometimes limited skills and expertise, lack of trust in some startups, and intellectual property issues. These are like the main challenges, I would say, from the perspective of our esteemed panelists. So I will open the floor for 10 minutes for any questions or comments on what have been said till now. So if you have a question or a comment, please just introduce yourself and just name the panelist that you are heading the question to. Yes, please. Do we have mics? I'll give you mine.
Thank you. I have the moderator's microphone. Nice. My name is Mattias Gustafsson. I work at IVL, Swedish Environmental Research Institute, and we have been involved in water innovations since our sort of birth in '66. And I have a question, or a follow-up questions perhaps to Jean-Marc and Joyce and Joe. It links to, what do you think, you mentioned barriers and challenges, what do you think is the role of our research organizations in sort of facilitating or creating momentum to introduce new innovations in water sector, circular water management, you know, all these things? So from your perspective as part of other sectors, what would you like us to do to sort of create more momentum in this? Because I think a lot of the innovations are there, but as we mentioned, there is a problem of uptake, there is this democracy issues, and of course we can work with those things, but sometimes, you know, it's a long stretch. So we have a mandate or some things we can do as RTOs. So I was really interested to hear your views about what you would like us to do. Thank you.
Thank you.
It's very complicated to...
We need a workshop just to talk about your question.
Yes, but and sometimes I'm asking myself this similar question. And I guess the media, I mean news, the media part from the official way need to let everyone to know that, and this is a challenge. It's not for a small part of the population, it's for the part in the earth. So let the problem getting greater, I guess it's some way to solve the problem as firstly. Secondly, I think maybe our company and some good company, what they did should share to the wide part, to spread out their performance and experience. And for my company, I guess we do more exhibition to let more person to know what are the innovations we have, I guess, like this. And anything else, I need to listen other experts and professional one. You know, we have many professors in the institute, and I need to know too much.
Yes, it's very hard. For our company, we also need some open discussion panels to know what kind of new technology could be used in the current market. Because they, especially in rural areas, they need clean water or clean food to make their life better. We also focus on some new technology. We are not directly on water innovation, but we prefer to dig or find new technologies for which can be used in rural areas to protect their life or rural life. So for our IM base, we prefer to an open channel to discuss with more aspects or technology providers to make this technology could be used in short time in our life or our market.
Hey, yeah, thank you. Maybe I have something to say regarding the Middle East. For instance, in the Middle East, we have a huge gap between academia and researchers policymakers, decision makers, and as well the private sector. So I would say that more engagement of academia and research centers within the private sector and startups business would be useful, and that comes through maybe more workshops, more programs for engaging private sector and companies in the research and vice versa. Maybe having some need gap analysis. You know, what does the private sector need for improvement, and then that could be taken to the research centers and to the universities and so on, and innovation centers. So more collaboration and more engagement should be there to bridge the gaps. And this is something really unfortunate in the Middle East. We do have huge gaps. So I think more involvement would be useful. Do you have something to say, Divas?
Maybe I can say something also, because from Fraunhofer, we do this applied research. Great. So we join the universities and the companies. So the main problem is that when you are looking at the university side, usually we look at the papers. We find the research gaps in the papers. And usually the papers don't have proper practicable solutions most of the time. Yeah? Papers you try to do theoretically a newest thing, but you know, on the other side, the companies, you have to work with reality. So from that side, you need from the community side, you know, from bottom up, look at the proper problems which the people have got, and then try to find a solution, and then do your research. Yeah, that's the only solution which I see.
Great.
I just want to add a point, Matthias. Just add in that, you know, in like you said, Ron, it has to do, engagement is absolutely key, but who do you engage? And I think there's been a lot of engagement now from my WWF days because our main goal when I joined there in 2015 was to get the financial industry talking the talk that we talk at WWF. And a lot of it initially was focused on climate, then it moved to nature and biodiversity, and water is always still in the background. But I think that same conversation needs to be had for water. But what is relevant to financial institutions? It has to be something that either makes or saves them money or reduces their risk. I think one area, and it's been underserved in most of the finance discussions, because we always talk about banks and investors, such as asset managers, but one area that we don't talk about enough is insurers. And I think from the area of public health, and we're talking about water, right? Public health and insurance companies that are obviously insuring health insured, right? They will have an interest in this. And I think and even in our other work that we do on climate, on nature, it's been underutilized we haven't engaged them enough for the insurance world. And I think they have a lot to benefit from in these discussions and they can actually help. My point is, I guess, is they can help with funding, because at the end of the day, if you are reducing claims to insurers, that is obviously good for them, right? The more they have to pay out in claims, the more it costs them money. So, you know, it's the same with climate and other issues. If you make things less risk or more risk averse or less risky for them, they can insure things. If they're more risky, they can't, or if they do, the premiums will be so costly that people can't pay them. So I have no idea what we would do yet, but that's one kind of thing that, you know, I'm just thinking off the top of my head from your question that we could, you know, look at in terms of engagement of insurance companies that have an actual direct relationship to public health.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Any other question, comment? Yes, please.
Thank you very much. My issue, or of course, comment is on the issue of markets. I think one of the presenters said we have challenges in getting markets, and I wanted to know whether is it ability to pay, or there are no customers. Because normally what you do is when you are developing a product, you also check the market. You start at the ideation stage. There is no market, then of course sometimes people may not develop. So I don't know what the issue of the markets was. Is it capacity to pay, or there are no customers, or they need to be developed? I don't know.
Maybe I can answer that one. Because if you look at the market, for sure they got specific needs. Yeah? And most of the time, if you develop a product, yeah, you aim to that market. But the problem is that if you got a new technology, like in the water systems, yeah, most of the, let's say water transportation, the basic problems have been solved already. And the customers, yeah, they think they got enough already. So if you try, for example, to optimize a system, say, let's say a water distribution network, yeah, it has got leakages, and you try to improve that one, you get maybe 5% more, yeah, price. So to find out, even though there's a market, but they are not willing to pay for that, yeah. So that's the main problem. Yeah. These extra costs, which they don't find at that time maybe necessary, yeah. Even though the market is there, but they are not willing to pay. Yeah.
Or the payback is not.
Oh, exactly.
Yeah, it's not incentivizing enough.
Yeah.
And I you know what? I think the main problem here is that startups and companies start with the solution. They never know. They never look at the problem. And I think that the right way is to look at a certain problem in a certain community and then identify the end users who's going to benefit out of the solution that you are providing for this problem. So you have to make a problem analysis, analyze, identify one problem, and then see who would be the end users, and then try to come up with a solution that is appropriate for the end user. So you have to identify the problem, the end user, and then try to find a solution that suits the end user. And that's why most of the companies and our startups, I won't say fail, but they have they face many challenges in marketing their products. And that leads us to this question to you, Divas. What marketing strategy do you recommend for startups? And if you can say something for the MENA region, I would appreciate that.
Oh yeah, for the MENA region, strategies, in general, you can see you need to have a proper, robust business model. Yeah, that's very important, like in the MENA region. A model which has got alternatives. Yeah, because with this climate change, it's affecting quite a lot, especially in the MENA region, and there you must have a robust business model. Another strategy is if you got problem, for example, this financing. You have to find some ways to find diverse type of funding, like crowd funding, for example. Yeah? So you must be more creative, yeah, in this region. And he was talking also of risks, for insurances. Yeah, because in the MENA region, because of this political instabilities, issues of climate change, and also for startup, that most of the time there are no, let's say, what you call senior advisors, to have partnership with other bigger companies. Yeah, it's always a problem because most of the bigger companies, which do water like distribution, are places like in Europe. Yeah, so you need a big brother somehow. Yeah, to get into the market. If you talk with a big brother, who can give you go to the bank with him, and then he can give you credibility, so that you at least get that finance. Yes. Yeah. So, yeah, that's why I say the two main strategies, I think, for the MENA region, which are important, besides storytelling, yeah, that you must tell your story about your product. Mm-hmm. Yeah. What is really unique in the product, and then you really brand it. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the value proposition.
Exactly. Yeah. Okay. And then that way you can get more finance and also more customers. Yeah.
Great. So that leads us to a question to the companies. So after listening to what Divas was just saying regarding marketing strategies, how do you address potential barriers as companies to entering the market in the water and agricultural sectors? So, of course, you have challenges in entering the market. So how do you address such barriers, such challenges in entering the markets?
One of our features of our incubation, we established companies with our large-scale state-owned companies or listed companies. We always make a technological meeting with them, and we know what kind of technologies they need. So then we find such technologies from our colleges or institutions to incubation, so as to make their technology could be used in the market. Of course, as a company, a great part of our customers are our local governments and state-owned companies like this. And a rest part of our customers are people who have big house and companies like this, so they can afford. To be honest, it's really hard to promote new technologies in the market. So we need demonstration projects for us. So we always need to make cooperation with our local companies, local leading companies, listed companies, and stand-owned companies like this.
So Joyce, how do you handle competition in the green sector? I mean, of course, there are competitors for your company. So you are having like these challenges in entering the market. So how do you handle competitions? What do you do? What are your strategies? What sets your startup or your company ahead of other startups from your point of view? How do you see it?
As you know, we are an incubator, not a traditional company engaged in a kind of.
There are other incubators, right? So there are.
We focus on the industry, not all the industries. We focus on the environmental protection industry. This is the first thing. Secondly, we have our own fund to invest in teams or our technicians to help them have a company or start up a company like this. And what kind of technologies we want to invest or we want to incubate them, we will, according to the technology needs from our partners, just like I said, large leading companies, our governments, or the state-owned companies like this. So this is the three ways for us to meet these challenges.
Yeah, great. So Joe, I would like to hear from you as well. How do you handle competition in the market? You provide wastewater treatment solutions, right?
Yes.
So, of course, there are other companies providing same solutions. So how do you handle competition in the markets?
Like Ms. Joyce said, technology is one kind of the path to cross the other competitors. It means we should run faster. And we try to become a founder and a leader in this kind of industry. And also to invite it to develop one kind of the technology is not an easy thing. Even in the COVID times, the 2 or 3 years, my company, the boss and the leadership, they also invested too much, even 100 million, 100 Chinese yuan.
Okay.
So it's not easy for a company and a person to make a decision. But if you want to move up, you should do. That's why we come to here and to know something innovative.
Yeah, great. Because, you know, in the Middle East, we do have this problem of lack of trust in the local companies. So I would rather, not me as Rana, I'm talking about a Middle Eastern citizen. I would rather work with foreigners, with experts from abroad than working with a local company. And this is like it's a culture, you know, it's by culture. People do not trust local companies. So that's why we do have many problems and challenges with startups, particularly working in the water and agriculture sector. So I think it's really important to listen and see what is there out there on how to compete and how to try to enhance and improve your services and stay ahead, to build trust in your local community and in the market. And I have a question now to you, Jean, please. What is your role in engaging with the international agencies in general? So, of course, you do have collaborations with international agencies. So, what international agencies do you work with? What is the exact role of this collaboration? What are you looking for through collaborating with international agencies in investing in water innovation and agriculture innovation?
Yeah, so I think, in terms of international agencies, that we talked to quite a few of them, both agencies and development banks, I guess you can say. So, and it typically revolves around ODA, or official development assistance money, that we're talking about. So, so we talked to USAID, JICA, and we talked to AFD, GIZ, and those are, I guess, the key ones. And we actually, we work with. Particularly in Japan, we work with the Ministry of the Environment of Japan. This particular area, though, is focused on adaptation. But what we're looking for and what we're looking to do is utilize their capital to then mobilize investment capital. Then that's where we talk to the development banks. So we'll talk to the multilaterals such as ADB, IFC, or we'll talk to bilateral institutions such as FMO in the Netherlands, and how they can finance these projects once we get them up and ready. So our main role in talking with the development agencies and in this kind of capital is really to get this, what we call incubation capital, to get the projects off the ground, or get them to a point where they're investable and have the ability to scale. With that said, we also talk to private, I guess they kind of fit in this ecosystem as well, but private capital, right? And that typically comes from grantors or foundations, such as, just to name, we're not working with them in particular, but just to name, like, the general ones that you may have heard, the big ones, Rockefeller, Ford. So we tend to go a bit more towards the public side, but we certainly can talk to the private ones as well. But what we need, the thing is, what we need from them to answer your question in particular, or what we need to deliver to them and why they would give us funding, is because a lot of this funding is grants, right? And it's not returnable. Now, if we talk to development banks, they want actual money back, right? They want impact and money. But for the grantors or the development agencies, what they want is mainly impact, because a lot of this capital, some of it is returnable, but the majority is not. It's something that they give you as a grant. But there's several things that we need. First of all, we need, from the companies that we're working with, they're all projects that are commercial. And a lot of times these projects will, if they give 100,000, a lot of times the company has to have 100,000, or at least half that, 50%. Depends on the criteria of the particular grant. So the company that we're working with also has to have money. There's no way, I mean, it may be small amounts of money, but when we're talking bigger capital, none of these agencies will just give it away without something in return, because the owner of the projects have to have skin in the game. The other thing, so we have to make sure that's a criteria we have to make sure we have with anyone we work with. If they're a broke, company owner, they have no money, it's going to be tough. We can't really do much with them. They also have to have, their projects have to have the ability to scale and grow. And what they're in the product that they're delivering there has to be a good market for it. The other thing we have to have, and it's absolutely essential for the development agencies, is that we have to have measurable, verifiable impact, right? We can't just say, oh, we're going to do this, or, we're going to save them this many tons of water. We have to actually have that. How are we going to verify that? And then how are we going to report on that going forward? And these guys want that. So that's absolutely essential. We're not going to get the money. So that's something we need to do for the company and for us to get that capital to then invest in the project.
Yeah, and would you be willing to support and invest in the Middle East as, from an investor perspective? Because, these donors and international agencies, USAID, GIZ, SDC, and so on, they work extensively on in developing countries on development projects. So would you be willing to invest in the Middle East? Because till now, you don't have this work in the Middle East. Yeah?
I mean, it depends on where. I mean, we ourselves are, we're getting the capital from, we have to get it from somewhere, right? So the capital comes in, if it comes in development grant form, we'll get it from these institutions. So it depends on their mandate, not so much. I mean, we're kind of agnostic. I'll go and develop. If we can have strong impact and, pay for ourselves to do the work, we'll be happy to do it in a developed country. But the development agencies or development banks, they want to work in only countries that they are mandated to do. So if we're getting our capital from there, that's what we want. Now, if it's private capital, they are also able to have a lot more leeway, and it depends on their mandate, but they have more leeway. But the development agencies, it depends on what countries they can invest in. Now, if the countries in the Middle East that we're talking about qualify, then sure, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Thank you. Do you have something to say, Divas?
No, I want to add something also.
Yeah, of course, please do.
Yeah, verification doesn't only apply to the lender. You've seen also, like in the Middle East, from my experience, it's like people believe what they see. So you need proper demonstration systems which can really show what you're going to gain, from the new technology or from the innovation. Yeah,
I do agree.
Yeah.
Piloting is really important because, yes,
exactly.
People, they want to see, they want to feel, they want to know that they are going to benefit out of this technology. So once again, we will open the floor for any questions or comments from the audience. So any questions? Yes, please. Do we have a mic?
Hello, my name is Andi. I'm from Indonesia. I work for the National Research and Innovation Agency. Previously, I worked at incubation program in Indonesia, but currently I serve as industrial partnerships. So when it comes to impact investments, because I have experience with startups, when it comes to impact investment, it's hard to balancing between sustainability and profitability. So as an incubator and as an advisor and as a startup, how can you advise the startups or them to maintaining the long-term impact while also meeting the investor expectations?
So I assume this is to me. Yeah, so thanks for that question. I mean, the first thing is to recognize who your investors are, right, and who you're targeting. Now, we have somewhere in one of our PowerPoint presentations, we have this really nice little XY chart that shows the different investors and where their risk appetite lies versus what they're looking for in impact. And it's actually a great visual rather than me trying to explain it. But essentially, at the end of the day, you have the grantors who are obviously not looking necessarily for financial return, but they're looking for impact return, right? That's their main focus. Then you have the impact investors who are kind of in the middle, and they're looking for, or development banks, and they're looking for impact and return, but they'll take a slight haircut on the return because that's what they're there for. Same with an impact investor. And then you have the pure investor, right? They don't really care about impact, and all they want is financial return. So that's what we're dealing with. So who are we trying to target? So I would say, for us, we're targeting both the grantors and the impact guys. We're not really talking to pure finance players. So we can cut them out. So already we're dealing with a better group of investors, right? Or a more, responsible type of investor, if you want to call it that. With that said, though, I don't necessarily think all these projects, it depends. I mean, some of them, yes, you have to take a haircut on. And in early stages, you need either some kind of subsidy or some kind of concessionary capital to get these off the ground. But once they get off the ground, some of them have very good returns. I mean, we're talking 20% IRRs. They can be even higher than that. It's 30. So, the one we're looking at in Laos has about 22% IRR, I think, and so that is something that's, to me, that's a respectable return on investment. So there's this kind of, I guess, thinking or attitude that if you're doing something sustainable, you're going to be losing money or not make that much. I mean, if you want to compare what we're doing to Silicon Valley, yeah, okay, we're not. I mean, yeah, but that's one area, and we're not trying to compete with that. But if you want to look at normal industries, we can compete with that, right? And people do invest in just regular industries. So I don't think sustainability naturally is necessarily a negative thing. So yeah, but again, it comes back to if you're going to deal with these concessionary investors and they're going to take a haircut, you got to make sure the impact is strong, and it can't be just weak, kind of theoretical. They won't even give you money in the first place, but you got to deliver, and you got to have it spelled out, and you got to have it be measurable to the decimal, and then you have to have it also verifiable. All right, someone's got to track that, and not just while the project is going, but ongoing. All right, yeah. So you have to have the monitoring and evaluation continuing. Just one other point I want to bring up, that just by the way, we're not talking about this at all, but all the projects, and this is a small side note I want to make, but all the projects that we work on, we have to make sure also that we're not impacting in a negative way where we're working, right? So you can develop all these great projects for water, but in the meantime, maybe there's a negative impact on the community that you didn't intend to have. So you also have to have these safeguards in place for all these projects as well. And that does matter to impact investors and development agencies.
And that's why stakeholder analysis is really important before the beginning of any project. You have to identify and analyze all of your stakeholders so as to know who are you going to impact, who's going to be impacted, and so on. So that's really important, what you have said.
Absolutely, and you have to have the support of the local governments in provincial and even on the national level. You have to be within their plan, right? If you're not and you don't have that support, yeah, and it's not just that. It's also academics. It's all the community, of course. So there's many stakeholders that you have to have involved.
And all players.
Yeah.
Thank you. Divas, do you have something to say?
Yeah, but there are some things which can't be foreseen. Yeah? Exactly. So I still remember, like in South Africa, there was 2018. There were nearly to tap zero. Yeah, there was no more water. But then they built, like in Cape Town, a big desalination system. And now there's water already, and the desalination system, which they invested millions, is no more work. It's closed. Yeah. Such things can happen. That's why it's very long-term issues are very difficult. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you have something to say as companies? Do you look at the impact of your project, of your services, of your...
For the incubation, we also will provide some investment for our new startups. For the ratio, we always be control. The ratio is under the 30%. In other sides, when the new startup is established, we also need more investors and also because we engaged in the environmental protection industry, we also will invite our leading companies in this sector to establish the new startup. For example, a year ago, we cooperate with a famous university called Southeast University in Nanjing. A professor wants to transform his technology used in the rural sewage treatment. So we established a group to help him. And in the whole process, we also invest the new startup and invite a local company who is very famous in the sewage treatment, Thailand company, and established a new startup in last March. It is called Guohe Lüneng, focusing on the sewage treatment in rural areas. And also in China, the sewage treatment in rural areas will be provided some funds from our local governments or some authorities. So in the whole process, we should consider many sectors like the market, the sectors, the investors, and the governments, and our policies, our supporting policies like this. Thank you.
Do you have something to say? Or?
Impacts now already changed something in China now. Normally, for sewage plant and wastewater treatment plant, we normally use the concrete type and as the traditional type. Now, Jiangsu Taiyuan, my company, they developed one new concept product. We use modularized stainless steel to set up. So that's why we can reduce land occupation and emissions, also the labor cost.
And all negative impacts on the environment.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Actually, we use this new technology and innovations to change something.
Thank you, Joel. So any other questions, feedback, comments? No? Okay. I have a final question regarding the gaps in the ecosystem of startups and innovation. So what do you think? What are the main or the key gaps in the water innovation ecosystems? Who would like to say something regarding gaps in the ecosystem? Maybe something regarding...
Yeah, so I can start off with, it comes down, again, we're back to funding. The gap, there's a big gap in there. But one way to look at funding is not just how do we get some random entity to put money, invest, or donate money into water solutions, but looking at the users of water. So corporates, major corporates, a lot of, F&B, right, food and beverage companies, a lot of them. So they're heavily reliant on water, and they're also heavily reliant on the natural ecosystems where they do their operations. Now, there's a lot of, if you look at from a climate standpoint, when you look at scope 1, scope 2 emissions, that's all taken care of by the major corporates in Europe, for example. But now Europe, the EU, is putting a lot of pressure and a lot of things in place where scope 3 has to be taken care of. And what scope 3 is, if everyone's not aware, is really the supply chains of those corporates. Right, so they have to look beyond, and it started with emissions, but it applies to nature and it applies to water as well. But how are they going to green their supply chains, right? So right now, yeah, they can green their own company and their own emissions, and they take care of their travel with their employees and how they get to work and how they fly around. But the elephant in the room, if you want to use that phrase, is scope 3. And then going all the way down to the tier 3 suppliers, the farmers on the ground. How do we green them, right? And water is a huge gap there. And so that's something that they need to take care of. So how are we going to be good stewards of the rivers that they use for their products? How are we going to, not pollute them? How are they going to actually clean them up? So they have to, that's all really important if they want to, sell back or have their products in Europe and also sell back into Europe if they're international companies from Europe. So all that has to be thought about. So a big gap is, and it's not just water, it's climate as well, is really focusing on this scope 3 and the tier 2, tier 3 suppliers to these companies. And I think that's something that we need to really start to focus on. And that's a great way to get funding because they have to fund their own operations and their own cleanup and their own sustainability. They can fund a lot of this stuff.
Yeah. Do you have something to say about the policies? What kind of policies are there in place to support water innovation? I mean, generally speaking, do you think that policies are there in place to support innovation? Is the enabling environment of water innovation, is it working well? As an expert, what do you say about this?
Yeah, from my point of view, the Middle East, I can't say much now about water policies, but like in Europe, like the Water Framework Directive, from the European Union, that's really, it's working, at least, yeah. So that's what I can only say in this one. Yeah.
Maybe I can add something on the enabling environment of water innovation in the Middle East. I think that it's not working very well. We have many gaps in the innovation ecosystem. We don't have like a national policy for water innovation. This is one thing. We do have a lot of efforts, but they are scattered efforts in the water innovation. We have many donors and international agencies working on water innovation, but there are no synergies between the donors. So scattered efforts here and there. So there is no huge impact for such efforts. So I think that. We have to work hard on getting, on bridging those gaps in the ecosystem in many countries of the Middle East. If there are no other questions from the audience, I would like to wrap up quickly what have been going on since 90 minutes. We have talked about water and water innovation and sustainable communities. We identified water innovation from different perspectives: business experts, investors, and private sector. We have defined sustainable communities and water innovation from the different perspectives. Then we addressed the challenges or the main challenges that are facing the water innovation sector. We talked a bit about some opportunities from finance point of view, from the experts' point of view, from the private companies themselves. And finally, I would like to have recommendations for scaling up. So if I asked you for one recommendation, one key recommendation, or maybe a couple of recommendations for scaling up water innovation, what would be your recommendation? So who would like to start by giving us a recommendation to scale up water innovation?
My recommendation is to find the way new for reuse and recycling. And it's very important for the material. And the resources can be recyclable. It's very, I think it is the way to save the energy and the resources.
Great. Joyce.
Totally agree with John. The water resource is limited. First of all, we should save water and save our resource. Second of all, I hope we need more concepts or technologies to help our life to be better.
Thank you. Jean Divas.
My recommendation also, if you want to scale up, you must try to work with the community. Yeah, so that at least your solution can get spread. Yeah,
engaging communities.
Yeah.
Any recommendations from investor point of view?
Yeah, I mean it's really focusing on things that have the ability to scale. So what are those things, right? So, yeah, I mean, it's kind of a hard one. I mean, I tend to rely on the experts to give me those. You know, I ask them, how can we scale this? And then they give me the solution. So, yeah, I would say, you know, anything that they need to just be looking at longer term pictures or broader kind of projects that can add to the scalability, because that will attract the bigger, that'll attract the investment. Investors, just to note, they want, and most of the time, you know, they have bigger tickets, or when they invest, they're not going to give you, you know, 50,000. They want to invest 5 million or 20 million. So what are those projects, and how can we make those bigger to attract that kind of investment? Of course, the return and everything matters as well, but that's how you make it attractive. But what are those projects? That's why I rely on the water experts to tell me that.
Yeah, great. So if I can add something, I'm tailoring all of the, I'm trying to get out the best out of your comments and take it to make benefit for the Middle East. So if I would say what recommendations could be taken out of this great panel today for the Middle East to scale up water innovation, I would say, first of all, bridge the gap between private sector, policymakers, and researchers and academia. This is first. Second thing, or maybe this is the first thing, to exactly understand what does water innovation mean. Innovation starts from identifying a problem and then coming up with a solution. Understand your market, analyze your end user, select the appropriate ways for marketing and for selling your service, for selling your solution, and then bridging the gap and making collaborative efforts and coming up with this holistic approach, integrated approach between all the stakeholders. I would like to thank all of you, and I think that it's been a very interesting discussion here. Thank you, our panelists. Thank you, our audience. And I think that we have a coffee break. Is it a coffee break now, or is it the next session? I'm not sure.
Lunchtime, yeah.
Yeah, okay. Thank you.